They have been feared, burned, and mostly misunderstood.
We went underground after 9 million people were burned, hanged, and tortured.
They can journey to the darkness, where good and evil can become one.
It's often been said that the gods of the old become the devils of the new. In actual fact, witches don't even believe in the devil, let alone worship him.
They were born in an age when magic was a religion, and they live among us today. They are witches.
Beyond what is known lies an unexplored world of shadows and phantoms. A land that knows no limits of time or space. From the dawn of discovery to the nightfall of catastrophe. Journey to a universe of the unexplained, the unforeseen, the unbelievable. A place beyond reality where no question will go unanswered. A place where myth and legend are law, superstition a science.
It's time for our journey to begin. You stand at the crossroads between superstition and reality. You are witches. Knowledge surrounds these library walls, and with these instruments, that knowledge can be ours. When some of us imagine a witch, we think of a cloaked hag huddled over a boiling pot filled with unspeakable ingredients, or flying through the night upon a broomstick. That image, alas, is far from the truth. To discover what a witch really is, we must journey back to an ancient time when magic was a way of life, and the gods battled for the hearts and minds of humanity. Time is running out. The ways of the old gods were no longer the ways of the people. The wise priests knew that their magic was no longer welcome. So on that last Hallows Eve, they came to this spot where the moon touched the earth to put their magic to rest. The secrets that had been spoken loudly so the world could hear would now be whispered, for a new god had risen, and his priests would not tolerate the old ways. It was somehow appropriate that they should consign their tools to the soil, for the gods had taught them to venerate the ground, the sky, and they would protect the knowledge until the time was right to rise again. But the whispers would rustle through the dark forests, the silent rivers, the ways of the Wicca would never be forgotten. Their beliefs would live on, their descendants known as witches. Do what thou wilt, and let it hurt none. This is the credo of many modern witches, witches whose rituals take many different forms. There are four basic kinds of witches: hereditary, traditional, Gardnerian, and Alexandrian. Hereditary witches have kept the traditions of magic alive through their families for thousands of years, quietly behind closed doors. Traditional witches pay close attention to preserving historical rituals from Europe, though they can be found the world over. Gardnerian witches take their name from the studies of Gerald Gardner, an English witch and author who died in 1964. Another personality-driven cult is the Alexandrian, named for a modern English witch who emphasized ceremony and codified ritual. Because of their persecution, very little about how witchcraft began has been recorded. This shadowy past has done much to perpetuate stereotypes. But as is often the case, those cliches do have some basis in reality. For example, some witches still use a broomstick during their meetings, called covens. Not to fly, but for ceremony.
The broomstick is frequently associated with witches. They were thought to ride through the air on their broomstick going to the Sabbath site. And this is a distortion of what actually happened in the early days. There was a time of year when the village people would go down to the fields and they would take along with them broomsticks and they would ride astride them like on a hobby horse. And as they danced around, they would jump up in the air. And they felt that the higher they jumped, the higher the crops would grow, is what we would call sympathetic magic.
Another popular witch cliché is the cauldron, bubbling with unspeakable ingredients. In actuality, the cauldron has a far more palatable origin.
The cauldron was used in the early days when witches came from miles around to gather at the Sabbath sites to celebrate the main festivals. And they would bring with them the food that they wanted to eat, having traveled some distance. And they would cook it in a big cauldron over a fire set up before getting down to the religious side of things. This is where the cauldron came to be associated with witches.
The misconceptions surrounding witchcraft are legion, and modern-day witches are attempting to set the record straight.
The most upsetting misconceptions are that witches are Satanists and that we worship Satan or the devil. And witches don't have any Satan or any devils or demons in their belief structure.
People assume that witches are going to do something bad or wrong or hurt them. I have no desire to hurt anybody. That's not part of my life.
Our motto is, as it harm none, do as ye will. Witches don't believe in harming any living thing.
Witches look like everybody else looks. They're human beings. They're going to have your general yuppie look, your Gucci skirt, your fashion plate, your dungarees. Often, many witches who work in the bank will wear black most of the time, and no one really knows the difference because right now it's very fashionable.
Within witchcraft, there are no 10 commandments, there's no catechism or anything like that. There's just one law, and that law is, and it harm none, do what thou wilt. This basically means that you can do anything you like so long as you harm no one else. And this is really the only law that we find that we need.
One of the most startling facts about witches is that there are more of them today than ever before. Their rituals have remained unchanged for thousands of years, though they have adapted to our modern world in occasionally surprising and shocking ways. These are witches' tools. Innocent in appearance, mysterious in function, they're easily purchased in many places. They only become powerful when used as ritualistic tools to summon and control powers beyond our wildest dreams or nightmares.
Hail, Aradia, goddess of the east, powers of air. We invoke you and call upon you. By the breath that is her spirit, send forth your light.
We are not in medieval Germany, nor hidden in the bowels of some castle in England. No, this is Woodland Hills, California, in the United States. And these are modern-day witches. This coven gathers together often and follows the procedures passed down through the ages. Here they prepare to consecrate the earth, for this is a time of joining, of becoming, and of singing.
We all come from the goddess, and to her we shall return.
There is so much energy and love that goes around, that comes out of the voices, and even those of us who can't carry a tune to save our life sound great. And you feel that love there, in yourself and in your friends. That's what singing does for me anyway.
Flowing to the ocean.
These arcane ceremonies can take on many different forms. but they all share one thing in common: symbolic magic achieved by archaic ritual empowered by modern-day belief.
The idea of sympathetic magic is that like attracts like, so that, like in our society, we think of money as being green. If you want to draw money to you, you would use a green candle. Or you'd make up a little herbal amulet of herbs that are associated with the monetary planets like Jupiter or something like that. And you'd put those herbs together and sew them up into a green sack that you would carry with you, and that kind of thing.
Some modern-day witches argue that ritual needs to adapt to the times, to take on a more contemporary guise. But as in anything, tradition is hard to cast aside, and to some people, the rewards are worth the risks of ridicule.
It's something that brings out the best in me. It's really hard to describe how I feel in circle and how I feel afterwards. It's kind of like runner's high, really. Feel it flowing around through the hands joined together.
The old ways die hard. Some of the symbols and ceremonies associated with witchcraft have survived virtually unchanged for thousands of years, dating back to an age when magic was a science. In some ways, magic is a state of mind. Through the use of objects and symbols such as these, witches can focus their psychic energies upon any target they choose. These objects are props, if you will, in a strange form of mental theater. Now, most modern-day witches consider themselves to be white or good magicians, though black magic can be practiced as well, and these dark practices have done much to cloud mass perception. Magic can be practiced anytime, but on the 8 annual days of gathering called Sabbats, it can be particularly potent. One of the most notorious of these Sabbats takes place on All Hallows Eve, October 31st. We know that day as Halloween, and mark it by following an ancient tradition. In medieval times, fearful peasants would place lit candles inside carved gourds to frighten away marauding witches, a habit that has passed down to today's decorative pumpkins. Black magic and the fear it inspires has led to witches being on the defensive for centuries. That's an understatement when one considers the great witch hunts that took place in the late 15 and early 1600s. Many of those unfortunates accused of being witches were actually persecuted for darker reasons. And the more we understand those reasons, the less chance there is of witch hunts occurring again. This book, written in medieval times, is called the Malleus Maleficarum, or Witch's Hammer. It's a step-by-step guide into the world of hysteria. It shows in gruesome detail the ways to extract confessions from accused witches. And in these trials by torture, there's no such thing as innocence, only degrees of guilt. In the late 1500s in Europe, a wave of hysteria swept the land. Organized religion felt that the ways of the Wicca were a grave threat to their belief systems, and the pulpit became a platform for the denunciation and then extermination of anyone suspected of consorting with the old gods.
In Europe, especially during the Middle Ages, when schisms racked the church, there was a move to purify the church from within. And there were many investigations, the Inquisition and so forth. So for centuries in Europe, there had been tremendously brutal witch hunts, and church leaders conducted these. This went on in England as well.
The New World was not immune to these insanities, and in 1692, in the town of Salem in Massachusetts in the United States, the worst of the old world corrupted the new.
There had been incidents of witchcraft in New England for a 50-year period preceding the hysteria of 1692. But when the hysteria broke out in Salem, it was much more dramatic in terms of numbers and the degree of panic.
This panic began innocently. A group of bored schoolgirls amused themselves by dabbling in black magic taught to them by a West Indian slave. This experiment soon got out of control.
In the winter, people were pretty well confined to their homes, and teenagers had very little to do, especially young women. However, they found some entertainment in talking to Tituba, who was a West Indian, and in fact she taught them some charms and pretended, I think, to read their futures and so on. Of course, they were caught and were asked whether they had been signed on, if you will, as Satan's own, and they said yes.
These confessions soon ignited the flame of hysteria, unprecedented in the Americas. Neighbor turned against neighbor, making ludicrous and unsubstantiated charges that were nevertheless accepted at face value. Soon the courts were busy trying, torturing, condemning.
When the summer was over, 19 people had been hanged. One man had been crushed to death because he would not speak, crushed to death under stones that were placed on his chest. They were called firebrands of hell. And because of this, they were denied burial. Their bodies were flung down Gallows Hill and left for animals to devour.
Soon the fever burned itself out. In all, 24 men and women lost their lives. Salem still remembers its dark past, though some say the full impact of the horror has diminished with time.
I think what I have the most trouble with is the trivialization of injustice. When you see witch key rings and wall plaques on sale virtually everywhere in Salem, it's a little difficult to swallow. I feel it's more like selling Indian feathers at Wounded Knee or ashes in vials at Dachau. I find no humor, I find no eeriness, I find only horror.
Today, witchcraft arouses interest and some suppressed fear, but it is hardly viewed as a direct threat to anyone. Its converts feel that rather than a threat, it's a powerful force for good, literally changing the world for the better. There was a time when magic was taken for granted, its power accepted in much the same way as we accept electricity. The world has grown more complex since those innocent times, and today, man is detached from the mystic world, viewing it as an object of ridicule, even entertainment.
I think there will always be places where witches are not accepted, and I would hope that the places in which witches are accepted would become larger.
Witchcraft, although it's what might be thought of as an ancient religion, is actually very relevant to the present. It ties in very much with the ecological movement, with the women's rights movement, and because of this, it's become very, very popular.
We are people, we are families, we are men and women and children. The misconceptions go on and on and on, and of course we take responsibility for that. And that's what we are trying to do now, help people to understand us so that we are not the disposal for the ills of the earth. Because if they're looking for evil in us, they're looking in the wrong place.
These men and women who can so easily sail into the mystic world are not to be feared. They are to be understood, for they may have knowledge that can benefit us all, helping us to comprehend the boundaries of our real world a little more fully. The ancient ways live on. Your gods still exist as long as you believe. Witches, echoes of a magical past.
Secrets and Mysteries presents information based in part on theories and opinions, some of which are controversial. The producer's purpose is not to validate any side of an issue, but through the use of actualities and dramatic recreation, relate a possible answer, but not the only answer, to this material.